It's time for another episode of the Walk On Redshirts. Today we have our friend Jeffrey the Greek from Eyes on Big over. I saw you vibing to our intro video over there.
I love it. You know, some of these pod intros, it's like you're walking into a funeral or something. You know, like I like something. Get me going. Get the juices flowing. So good stuff, guys. I like it.
I really appreciate you joining us.
The elevator music doesn't get you hyped, Jeffrey?
It typically does not. You know, I'm old enough where I grew up in the Metallica age, you know, getting ready to play a high school football game or college football game. So stuff that's got a little bit more, you know, rock to it. By the way, shout out to Ozzy Osbourne. Sadly,
I was going to say, tough day.
Yeah.
Ozzy Osbourne.
Hey, how amazing was it that he was able to do that concert, their last concert, like 10 days ago, and then he passed away. That's legendary stuff right there.
I think Will should eat a bat in his honor today.
I'll do a lot of things. I don't know if I'm going to eat a bat. There's a lot of people calling for me to eat a bat if you've been keeping up with my Twitter page.
Yeah, well, I think we'll save that. I don't know what kind of diseases bats have, but I feel like we probably wouldn't go over well.
We saw what diseases they have about 5 years ago.
Oh, you are right. Someone...
This is my fault. I took this way off into the direction.
Yeah. It's all good. We'll talk some Big Ten football instead. But really appreciate you joining us. Eyes on Big. If you guys are not listening to them or following them over there, you got to make sure you go follow him and follow their page. You guys are putting what episodes out pretty much weekly at this point, or
we chill out a little bit. We chill out a little bit after the season in the spring, but come summer. It was earlier this year. I don't know about you guys, but I've been jonesing for college football, Big Ten football in our case. So we've really ramped it up, June, July, heading into August here.
Yeah. I think right around Memorial Day, we really started to kick it up a notch a little bit. So I know everybody needs a little bit of a break after just grinding through the fall and early winter.
Yeah.
And I may or may not have been watching Oklahoma Boise State on YouTube the other day at work. I cannot confirm or deny if that was on, but that's where we are.
That sounds like appropriate use of work time. They should be paying you for that.
They were, because I was also doing work. The work was the background noise. The game was my focus.
Okay. I mean, I know William and I got the smaller Rugrats in the house, and you're trapped. They go to sleep, they go to bed. Like, what are you going to do? You're not going to go out and do something. So you might as well watch something. So how about YouTube clips from, the last college football season? I do it all the time.
Absolutely. So let's get in. Let's start talking about some of the contenders. We're going to do similar to what we did last week. We'll do contenders, dark horses, and we got a little bit there at the end. Contenders. I think there's a pretty obvious consensus of a top three here for sure. But let's start with Penn State. They were ranked as number one by all the basic media polls going into Big Ten Media Day. Jeff, why do you? Maybe this is different. Why is Penn State the odds-on favorite in your mind to win the Big Ten?
So I've been joking with all my Penn State followers. If you look at Michigan 2 years ago and Ohio State last year, guys, it's just this simple. You bring everybody back, almost everybody back on your football team. You have a very cake preseason, out of conference schedule, 3 of the easiest games you could possibly schedule. You motor through those, and then you just go right through the Big Ten conference, win, pretty much every single game, get into the college football playoffs and go on a hot run and win the national championship. It's not that hard. I don't know why people overcomplicate this. This is all Penn State has to do in order to appease their fans. So let's, no excuses here, James Franklin. Let's make it work.
Yeah, there's not many big ones on the schedule, so that should be good. But you look at it; they don't play anybody until September 27th when they go. When Oregon comes to town for the whiteout game. So yeah, like you're saying, Jeff, Nevada, FIU, Villanova. Shout out Villanova! Didn't even know they had a football team anymore. For some reason I thought they had canceled that. Nope, it's back. It's there. The mighty Wildcats don't just play basketball. Big East still plays football. But then, right after Oregon, you go to UCLA. The hardest part about that is traveling to Southern California, which, as Deshaun Foster let us know last year, UCLA is in LA, just in case people were wondering.
Hopefully he has a little bit better Big Ten Media Days this year. But, I mean, with Penn State, I'm obviously being, a little facetious here. But, it's weird that there was so much talk with Michigan 2 years ago and a little bit with Ohio State last year, just how much of a cakewalk their non-conference games were. It's the exact same for Penn State, but maybe that isn't so bad. Maybe that gives those wide receivers a chance to get loose and feel a little bit better in the passing attack. Because as of right now, like looking up and down the roster with Penn State, I see it. I'll give a shout out to Jordan, my season podcast partner. He had called this being Penn State's year last year. He said they're going to come close in 2024. I really think 2025 is their year. That's what it's looking like. If I hate to be the consensus guy, but if the consensus is correct, and which I really feel pretty good with Penn State, I'm not going to disagree with it just for the sake of disagreeing.
Yeah, you're right on there, because the 2023 Michigan team, I mean, they had guys who could have went pro that came back. I mean, Blake Corum was one of the big ones who came back. I mean, I know his injury, he didn't play as much, when we got to the playoffs, it became more of a Donovan Edwards show, but same thing. He ran for, almost 2,000 yards in 2022. He could have went pro, chose not to. Ohio State last year, obviously, they had the whole plethora of teams, the guys who all came back. Both of them only had very few people that went pro. Penn State, same thing. You lose Abdul Carter, but other than that, you were never going to keep Abdul Carter back. He was a top 3 pick in the NFL draft.
Right.
But having all those guys back in, they actually addressed the needs that they needed to, rather than just trying to find a guy and hope that he steps up. Getting a guy like Trevor Pena at wide receiver, I think that's going to be a name that's going to become very familiar in the Big Ten. A guy that is going to be a slot receiver that's going to get a lot of catches and kind of be that new primary target, because with Tyler Warren gone, that is the biggest hole for me, is where do they have their primary pass catcher who is, when it's going to go to somebody, who is that guy? Who's going to be the guy that steps up that you're getting the ball?
Yeah. And Penn, obviously, I think he's grabbed most of the headlines in the offseason, but Ross that they got from Troy, as an Iowa fan, I saw him take the top off our defense last year, so I think he is really good. I like who they got from USC as well. So I like all 3 of these guys. And as Jake, my interview for Penn State pointed out, they're all 3 very different style of receivers, different bodies. Yeah. I think that's good for the offense. Yes. I just don't like that all 3 of them are all new. So, that whenever you replace, 4 guys on the offensive line and, 3 guys on the defensive line, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't like those big wholesale changes just in one. But with that being said, that probably is why those first 3 games, pretty much the month of September till Oregon being a cakewalk, that's not such a bad thing. I wouldn't feel guilty about that at all if I'm a Penn State fan, as long as Drew Aller and that passing attack looks good by the time they're going into Oregon.
And it helps the passing attack when you have a guy like Katron Allen and Nick Singleton in the backfield. That takes off a lot of pressure on Drew Aller, takes a lot of pressure off those receivers. It really gives them the time, obviously with the cakewalk in the first 3 weeks, but it gives them time to gel. What's it like, when the bullets are flying? Hey, if we can just hand the ball off on 3rd and short, we don't have to worry about converting a 3rd and short with a receiver or 3rd and medium. We're not going to have too many of those situations. You're feeling good. Then you come into Oregon, you've kind of gotten into a rhythm, so that could really work out for them. Another guy, he's had Luke Reynolds on the roster, and I really like Luke Reynolds at tight end for this Penn State team. So adding him and having that safety blanket, because Penn State loves their tight ends. So if he starts to freak out, he can go back and tap into his Tyler Warren and say, okay, where's Tyler Warren? Okay, it's not him, but it's Luke Reynolds. It's close enough. I can go there. I can go to my safety blanket, and then obviously the defense. As Jake's probably about to allude to.
No, I would say the only concern I'll have for the offense is if they get to Oregon and those 3 wide receivers have like less than 10 catches each. Because if they're just not using him and it's just going dump offs to the running back, like we've seen Drew Aller do plenty of times, go to the tight end. Like if we get 3 games in and 3 cakewalk games and these guys have like 9, 8, and 6 catches, I'll be concerned.
Well, another thing too is you haven't been punched in the mouth until you got to Oregon. Odds are when you get to Oregon, you're going to get punched in the mouth. How are they going to respond? The old adage is that when you're playing football, you don't know, like you can't take the hits until you got your first one. Once you get that first hit, all the other hits are fine. I don't think Penn State's going to get that first hit and really wake up into the season until they play Oregon in that whiteout. And the fans are going to be buzzing, the environment's going to be there. But go ahead, Jeff. Sorry,
but that's the benefit you get of this is an old team. They most of the guys on this played, so it's not like they're totally starting from scratch there. They have that offensive line that's either 1A or 1B for me for the best offensive line in the Big Ten. But you guys are hitting on all the stuff that's most interesting. And, what has it been? Has it been Drew Aller just doesn't locate the ball good enough on the outside down the field? Or has he not had the receivers to instill the confidence in him to get the ball to the outside and down the field? Like, I still don't know. I don't know if NFL scouts know. Can't wait to start finding out this year.
Well, and
we won't know until Oregon, because you're going to have a lot more confidence throwing that ball against Nevada and Villanova than you will against Oregon.
And I hate to always bring this about Clemson, but I have to a little bit. It reminds me of kind of Cade Klubnik's career arc, where his first 2 years he really didn't have any guy. His first year he didn't have anybody at receiver. So it's like, well, is this Cade Klubnik or is this a receiver problem? Last year he gets a couple guys, and now he shoots up from 19 passing touchdowns in the year to 36 passing touchdowns in the year. Now all those guys come back. We know what he can do. Now, what can he do 2 years in a row? I think we're going to see something similar with Drew Aller, where you're going to see some growing pains early, and then bang, a light's going to cut on, because he's got the arm talent. We've all seen it.
Yeah. I'll do a reverse on you. If I had to do a comp, I'm not, the greatest scout comp guy in the world, but Drew Aller kind of reminds me of Josh Allen. Okay. And Josh Allen, when he was at Wyoming, his junior year, he was unstoppable. He lost like all of his pass catchers, and his senior year took a big step back. So those receivers can make a huge difference. But by the way, we still don't even know if these receivers, are everything. I think with Pena, it's a little bit more established, but can't wait to see it with Penn State.
Yeah. Well, and Ross, you talked about, Ross took the top off of Iowa, but I always have a little bit of a concern when a guy goes from G5 to the Power 4, especially because you're going against that level of competition consistently. The first 3 weeks, obviously, he's going to be familiar. But when he gets into that thick of the schedule, you got Oregon. Iowa is going to be obviously a tough defense. Ohio State, I think Nebraska could be a little bit tough. Indiana's obviously in there. Like, how is he going to continue to adjust? And are they going to, trust him? And will he have separation? They tried it with Dante Cephas from Kent State a year or two ago, and it just was not. It didn't work out. Like, it was not good, and he ended up transferring out. I think Ross is better, but you don't know.
If we go to the other side of the ball, Jeff, I would like to hear your take on this. I'm a little worried about the depth at Penn State's defensive line. I think the first group is really good. Obviously, Denia, Dennis Sutton, and Durant. What's Durant's first name? Zane Durant are phenomenal. What happens outside of that, and am I just not familiar with it, or is it really that weak in terms of depth behind those guys?
Yeah, we saw the dentist DDS Dennis Sutton take off in the playoffs. He looked fantastic.
What a nickname!
You can go. It just rolled. Like we've been doing that one for a while. But if you look at Penn State, I mean, you're onto something. If you look at Penn State at each level, they have got a superstar, like potential first round, top 50 type of NFL draft pick at each level. But then they got a hole at each level. And then the depth is something that would concern me a little bit. Like, I would definitely want to see that defense stay healthy this year. I mean, we all want that, but especially with Penn State. So, and then I'm also interested to see, Jim Knowles. It was a little bit of a feeling out process when he went to Ohio State. Didn't look bad, but there was adjustments that he made. So, did Jim Knowles learn through that when he switched to more of a four-man front at Ohio State? Now that's something that he feels a little bit more comfortable with it, so he can teach it through quicker to the Penn State defense. We'll see. And again, that just goes back to the schedule, because I don't think the defense is going to get challenged too much until that Oregon game.
No. We went 15 minutes without talking about Jim Knowles here, and that's might be the biggest addition to their team.
Who's that? I don't know. Who is that?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, there was an adjustment period at Ohio State, and part of it is the Ohio State defense was not that good. There was talent there, but they were one of the worst in the country the year before Knowles got there. There's a reason why they went out and got him. Penn State is obviously starting at a much higher bar than where Ohio State was, at least when you talk about top defenses in the country.
Yep.
Penn State was considered a top 5, top 10 defense consensus last year, and so Jim Knowles was walking in with a Corvette and saying, don't crash it.
Well, you talk about similarities, Jake. What was Ohio State's defense's biggest bugaboo last year? And that was the pass rush. I think if anybody wanted to poke holes in the Ohio State defense, is that the pass rush is weak.
Yep, the defensive ends were great at stopping the run, but they were not known for being the best pass rush. They weren't getting to the quarterback as much as people would have liked. But
right. So
let's actually flip over.
Sorry, if you want to play devil's advocate, he's coming into a similar situation with this Penn State defensive line. I don't think that you have a war daddy, so to speak, at the pass rusher position. Denied Dennis Sutton, like we said, the dentist. I'm going to use that trademark deal, but he's not the most polished pass rusher. He's phenomenal edge setting. He's not going to let anybody get outside of him. He's a very athletic dude, as you saw with the pick that he had against I think it was Notre Dame. Phenomenal player. I don't know if he does it pass rushing. I mean, we're going to find out.
Yeah,
I think he might have a similar situation that Ohio State had last year.
Yeah, I think it'll be more pass rush by committee, but I trust Jim Knowles to figure that out.
Yeah. Obviously, there's no Abdul Carter, and you don't just have plenty of Abdul Carter sitting around, but Denida Sutton is a pretty solid one.
They don't grow on trees.
Let's flip over to Ohio State. Obviously, reigning national champion, lose tons of talent on both sides of the ball, lose all the running backs, the quarterback, Emeka Ibuka, Jack Sawyer, JT. You can keep going on, but they lose a plethora of guys on that defense, including the whole defensive line. You lose, they lost their center and their left tackle mid-season. They still won a national championship. You lose Quinshon Judkins. You lose Travion Henderson. You lose Will Howard. They're still considered to be a top 5 team here in the country. I'm going to put this out there, and Jeff, you can tell me if I'm wrong here. I think Ohio State has the 2 best players possibly in the country, definitely at least in the Big Ten. I don't know if you go in the Big Ten where, if you rank the top 20 players, where the 3rd best Ohio State player is. I think that player – maybe it's Carnell Tate, but I don't think they've got another one in the top 10.
Not right now. He thinks there will be a couple back in the top 10 or 20 at least by the end of the season. I think Kenyatta Jackson is going to be an absolute stud this year. I think he's going to be a terror. Sonny Styles is, if he's not in the top 20, he's pretty darn close. I think he's pretty good as well. So I don't know. I'm not feeling too sorry. Yeah. And by the way, they've got arguably the best tight end in the transfer portal, maybe in the Big Ten as well. So I think we just named like 4 or 5 that are at least.
Yeah, I think there's
quite a bit.
There's probably a top 20 guy, but I think you could just make an argument that with Smith and Downs, I don't care who you put 1, I don't care who you put 2, but they're probably number 1, number 2, and then there's probably another guy in the top 20, but I don't know if there's another guy in the top 10. And that's where I think Ohio State has to figure out their identity this year.
And with the mention of Max Player, we have just completed our Purdue breakdown. Sorry.
Okay. That's ours, but might not be wrong. I was just going to say I'm laughing because there's 18 teams in the Big Ten, and Jake's amazed that only 2 of the top 10 are Ohio State players. Like you can only expect one team to overtake so much of the players in the top 10, but I guess, but that's what we've gotten used to with Ohio State.
Yeah. I mean, last year you could have probably made a justification that they had multiple. I mean, you had Downs and Smith, and then you could have put, Emeka Ibuka in there. You could have put Lathan Ransom probably in the top 20. You probably could have put Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins somewhere in there. There was tons of guys. I mean, they had the Remington Award winner who, I guess, only played 10 games, but they had the best center in the country. You had Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau. Obviously, there's a massive new identity. I don't want to say it's a rebuild because I don't think they're rebuilding. I think they reload, but there's going to be a lot of new faces that people around the country aren't familiar with because it's been the same guys for the last 4 years for the most part.
Well, and you find out who Ohio State is week 1. You're playing Texas. I mean, you get them at home, but you're playing Texas. It's like, hey, let's find out who we are. Let's find out if we reloaded. It's a playoff game, week 1.
Which, by the way, Jake, if it's me, I love that game, not just as a fan, but as a player coach, because I don't know how, psychologically speaking, you don't lose a little bit of edge after you finally reach the summit. So to have something in the off season to make sure you're screwing those helmets on tight during camp and getting ready to go off season workouts, having Texas coming up first, I think that's a blessing in disguise. You're not going to knock yourself out of the college football playoffs by losing that game. So I think that's overall a good thing. And then, back to the top players, it's just that Jeremiah Smith is definitely the number one for me, and he's so much further out. Like I read an article, I read a lot of stuff. I forget where I was at, but it essentially said that Jeremiah Smith is the greatest college football true freshman since Herschel Walker. Now Herschel was before my time, but like you read that, and sometimes you read those things, and you're like, wow, they're really trying to make a splash by those words in this article. I think they're true. I mean, he was absolutely like for how much pressure was put on him, and he is such a difference maker. Like that's why I have confidence in Julian saying when you have Jeremiah Smith on the outside. I mean, the guy was just a cheat code. So it's such a big advantage to have somebody that talented.
So I think it makes the go ahead, Will.
No, go ahead, Jeff. Or Jake.
I would say I think that the Jeremiah Smith thing doesn't matter who the quarterback is. The three of us could be going out there quarterback by committee, but if I've got Jeremiah Smith on the outside, I'm going to at least walk out there with a little bit more confidence, knowing that my wide receiver is better than your DB. I just got to try to put it in his vicinity.
Well, and you think about like Nuke Hopkins in the NFL. I think he had 14 different starting quarterbacks in his career before he had like a steady guy. And was like leading the league in receiving yards a few of those years. And it's like, it doesn't matter who's out there. Just throw the ball around the area. Jeremiah Smith is that dude. He proved it time and time again. And he showed up in the big moments. I think people started to kind of nitpick. When you have a guy that's analyzed that heavily, you start to do whatever you can to find negative things about him. That's what people's biggest critique is about the NFL draft process. It takes so long that by the time you have these guys who are ranked up here, well, you start to pick here and here. It's like, maybe he's not that great. No, he is. And then he proved it to us in Notre Dame when he sealed the deal at the end of the game when everybody was like, he's not showing up in the playoffs. He's not really doing much. Boom. When you need him the most, he shows up. And big-time players make big-time plays in big-time games. So that's who he is. That's what he is. It doesn't matter who else you have out there. Caleb Downs is the same thing. You look at the Texas game. We know, Coach Sweeney used to tell us all the time, a game is decided by 6 plays. If you look at it, you could probably pick out the 6 plays that really changes the game. The Caleb Downs tackle on the cute screen pass that Texas did in the goal line changed the game. You look at the Notre Dame game with Jeremiah Smith making that big play. You go back and those guys just keep showing up in those moments. They keep showing up in those moments. Yep. And I would elaborate on your critique, Jake. They only have 2 guys in the top 10. Who are you going to else like if something happens to Jeremiah Smith, who do you rely on? Because you don't have a Travion Henderson to turn around and hand the ball off to anymore. Like, and I don't know what people know about James Peoples. Who is James Peoples? Like, what does he do?
Yeah,
has he been able to
play? He played in limited action last year,
right.
So I mean, you don't really get a good feel for guys when they're playing behind the second string offensive line or even maybe the first string offensive line. But you're up 35 points, really. Like, you're really going to understand what your running back can do when everybody and their brother knows they're handing it off to the running back. Now,
I do like C.J. Donaldson that they got out of West Virginia. I think that was an underrated pickup. If you talk about a guy who's probably flying under the radar over there in Columbus, I think C.J. Donaldson at the running back position, I wouldn't be shocked if he starts. And maybe I'm overhyped on him, but I really liked him out of West Virginia.
Yeah, and maybe Jay kind of like that thunder and lightning thing a little bit, so I think you can still get that a little bit. Let me ask you this, Jake. Julian's saying, so I have yet to do my position rankings because I don't know if I want to start that Twitter fight, but with Julian saying, I don't know. I think I'm going to have a tier ranking and basically just put him in the tier like, I don't know, you don't know, don't act like you know, with Julian saying it. And what I have been a little bit surprised as I've gotten to know his game, he's not known as much of a runner. And that would make me a little bit anxious, even at Ohio State, even with those receivers, because you saw it in even crunch times last year for Ohio State. They would run the ball with their quarterback. A lot of offensive coordinators do it. We have a new-ish offensive coordinator. I don't exactly know how that breaks down with Ryan Day, but thoughts on the lack of overall legs from Julian Sayin or what we think it is?
Yeah, I mean, no, you're spot on. I mean, you think about the Penn State game last year, Will Howard runs it, and, he has a very emphatic first down, motion to seal the game. Same thing against Texas. They pulled his legs out. They wanted him to run the ball. Will Howard on 4th and 1, obviously, if you remember, he trips and stumbles at the 20-yard line.
That's right.
Against Notre Dame at the end of the game, before they aired it out to Jeremiah Smith, they were trying to run QB power. They were trying to just run QB power and use 10 blockers. So, yeah, even if Julian Sayin can run the ball, he's definitely not the big body of like Will Howard maybe Will Howard's going to run a 4.8 or 4.9, but Will Howard isn't going to fall over at the first hit.
Right.
He's not going to
savvy. He's a savvy runner.
But Julian Sayin, I think we're going to see much more similar to the CJ Stroud type offense. And that's my gut instinct because they've got the receivers. They've got the receivers. The running backs were a little unsure on. The one thing I'm wondering if Ryan Day is going to do, because there was always the Ohio State fans screaming of CJ Stroud, why don't you run the ball? Because there's nobody in front of you for 10 yards. Just like tuck it, get the 6 yards, and fall all down. Everybody will be happy with that. I'm wondering if they'll preach that a little bit more. I know nobody knows. Like you said, this is the you don't know, I don't know, nobody knows. Julian Sayin threw one pass against Tennessee, and I had this conversation with somebody the other day. They're like, it was a duck. And I was like, do you think Julian Sayin walked in that game that night thinking, I'll bet you I get in tonight?
Yeah, it's freezing freaking cold. He's not warmed up. And let me play devil's advocate. I did it with Penn State. Let's do it with Ohio State. Ohio State, if you lose that, so you have the running ability in Garrett Howard. You lose it.
Will Howard,
sorry. I'm thinking of Garrett Nussmeier because they're just in my brain right now. LSU's just in my brain. Will Howard, you have that running ability, and you saw, like you said, in those crunch time situations, he was able to win those games. Kyle McCord didn't have that. And we saw that Kyle McCord is obviously a very, very talented passer. He tore up the ACC over at Syracuse. Your ceiling of an offense with Julian Sayin, if he's not a runner, could be CJ Stroud. But your floor could be the Kyle McCord offense that you had at Ohio State that kind of drums out when you play a Penn State, when you play an Oregon, when you play a top-tier defense. And, that's where I'm at with Ohio State. I'm like, man, they could be really freaking good, or they could take a huge step back. Because don't forget, Kyle McCord had Marvin Harrison Jr. Did he not?
He had a incredible wide receiver. Marvin Harrison was a top 5 Heisman finisher. Obviously, I don't know how you compare them directly, but they're both phenomenal talent wide receivers. But I think you're right there, Jeff. I think that there has to be a running element for the quarterback, at least a threat. At least a threat of a running quarterback, because if they're just stuck back there in the pocket, you saw the running attack struggled under both Stroud and McCord, because when it was a running situation, they knew who was getting the ball. There was never a chance that, Kyle McCord and CJ Stroud was going to keep it.
Yeah, and at 6'1", 205, he better be running.
I think more than anything, when I found out Julian Sayin was white, I was like, oh, geez. I was shocked. And then I saw the comps for him not running the ball. I'm like, we might have some concerns here.
That's the speculation. I think everybody believes Julian Sayin's going to win the battle. I don't think anybody really believes Lincoln Kienholz is actually going to be the starting quarterback.
Doubt it.
It's definitely QB talk or head coach talk. You can't announce the starting quarterback. Plus, you got to retain your roster, and there's all sorts of coaching strategies there.
Just to clarify, we have Penn State probably consensus number 1, Ohio State consensus number 2, or
that's where I have right now.
Yep.
Number 3 here, though, this team could definitely make it in there as Oregon. But similar to Ohio State, there's a lot of changes here. You've got quarterback. No, they do bring in a bunch of guys. You bring in Dylan Thieneman from Purdue. You bring in Mekhi Hughes from Tulane. They've got possibly this year form of Jeremiah Smith and DeCorian Moore. Evan Stewart is out for at least a portion of the year, if not most of the year, which could be something to watch. The defense, to me, is the biggest question mark, because in their 2 biggest games last year, Penn State and Ohio State, at the very end, Penn State was beating them through the air. Drew Aller did throw for a decent amount of yards in that game. And then obviously Ohio State just went and unleashed hell on Oregon. This, to me, like Oregon, this is a big year. Dante Moore, he's got starting experience, so it's not like you're bringing in some guy like a Julian Sayin who's never played whatsoever. Now he's a new system, but it's a full year in. I mean, Jeff, I don't really know. I just think Oregon's going to be good because Dan Lanning's got it. They've got talent, but I don't know anything really about this Oregon team.
Can I say one thing real quick, Jeff? I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Purdue. I want to go back to Purdue one more time. This is 2 straight teams we've talked about a top player coming from Purdue. What the heck was? And then if you want to talk about the third, again, to bring up Clemson, will help defensive end. So they have 3 guys who were NFL prospects last year, and Thieneman, Claire, and Helt.
Yep.
What the heck is going on in Purdue?
Well, they fired their coach.
Lafayette. Well, yeah, but like that's insane.
I know. There's a couple more out there. There's a couple linemen out there too. I mean, there's 4 or 5 guys that went to different college programs that are expected to start or play quite a bit. So yeah, it was not a good coaching job by Walters last year. That's for sure.
Well, and Chris Bell at Louisville, is this his first year at Louisville or is this his second? Because I'm pretty sure he was a Purdue guy.
Do you think of David Bell?
I'm thinking of David Bell. You're right. I'm thinking of David Bell.
Yeah.
I'll keep you around, Jake. That's why they pay you the big bucks.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, Jeff, tell me what?
Yeah, Oregon.
What should I know about Oregon? I just don't know what to expect out of them.
Yeah, here is what Oregon is. Oregon is got waves and waves of talent that's young and or inexperienced. That's what Oregon is. So like if you're looking at a team that has talent, Oregon might be at the top, them or Ohio State. But proven guys that I can point to, not quite as many. Now, they got arguably the best pass rusher in the Big Ten. That's a pretty good, place to start. I do like Mekhi Hughes coming over. I'm a little bit surprised on how much love he has gotten. I think it's just because he looked really exciting at Tulane, and you're plugging him in to Oregon, so people just assume he's going to absolutely shred people. I'm not saying he's not. I'm just surprised just how much love he's getting. But really, I mean, we can talk and talk. It's just going to come down to Dante Moore. Like, there's just so many questions, like maybe we could talk about
the guy with the most airline miles in Bear Alexander.
Yeah, I think
and apparently he's put it together. Like, I'm seeing him really climb up, like the R lads depth chart and stuff like that. And speaking of the lines, they plugged a guy in on the offensive line over from USC. They got 2 guys they've kind of plugged in. I'm okay with a plug in here and there on the offensive line, but like I alluded to before, I don't like it when I have multiple new faces that are moving into an offensive line. So these are the concerns, but it's just I never get that far down the path to be uber concerned with Oregon. Like their coordinator's back, their coach was back, their D coordinator's back. Like they have a lot of continuity within the program. They just got to get that killer instinct back because it got kind of taken from them a little bit in the playoffs. But you could probably write that up more as a bad draw than anything. But I've talked a lot. It basically just comes down to, is Dante Moore going to be good, really good, or do we know?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. And that, and last year, like when you had a guy like Dylan Gabriel, you were able to take that step forward in those big time games. You think about the Ohio State game, one that's neck and neck where your defense is doing everything they can, but you're playing against a team that's similar. Having a Dylan Gabriel who's been there, done that, in those late game situations to be able to take that step and win. Can Dante Moore do that? Now, playing at UCLA, he's used to not playing with this much talent. So he comes in, He chooses. In this era, this is not very common. He chooses to come to Oregon and sit where he was a true freshman starter at UCLA, chooses to come to Oregon and sit behind Dylan Gabriel, learn everything he can. I for one, am high on Dante Moore. I see the arm talent. I think he could do it. I see the athleticism. I don't see how I do see how he fails. I don't think he will fail in this offense. I think he'll be a phenomenal Big Ten quarterback, and that's just me. And maybe I'm in the minority there, but and a guy like Mekhi Hughes, I think he's going to be great. I think he's going to be able to really add a receiving portion to that backfield that can really help out a young quarterback.
Great point.
Yeah. When you look at Oregon last year, there were parts that confused me the whole season. I mean, they opened the year with Idaho. They they're in a dogfight with Idaho the whole
I forgot about that.
Boise State gives them an absolute run for their money. Then they go out and they beat Ohio State narrowly in that thriller of a game. They actually whooped up on Illinois, who was a pretty solid program in the Big Ten last year, but they also nearly lost to Wisconsin at one point too. They were neck and neck with Wisconsin there till the end. For the portion last year where I just wasn't sure what kind of Oregon was going to show up, and I think Dante Moore gives them more passing options. The one thing that I always noticed with Dylan Gabriel is I thought that Dylan Gabriel, he was limited with his arm. Like there were times where the deep ball just wasn't quite there. Like they had talented wide receivers, but it wasn't quite there. Against Ohio State, in that first one, he was able to stretch the field a little bit better. He was able to use his legs, but there were times where it just felt like every pass was within 8 yards. Just, I mean, I know there was a stat earlier in the year that, how many times he had thrown it past basically the first down marker, and it was not a lot.
Yeah.
So I think defenses were able to cheat up more because of that. I think Dante Moore's got a way more explosive arm. I think he's got a stronger arm. I don't know what his running ability is going to look like this year. I'm assuming he's going to get out of the pocket a little bit, but I don't know what they're going to plan to do with Dante Moore in this offense.
Yeah, and another thing that helps I forgot to mention is you have Moore. He was a 5-star last year. What's his first name?
DeCorian Moore, who was probably might be the best freshman wide receiver this year.
Right. So that's going to help the loss of Evan Stewart. Obviously, you lose a senior wide receiver. You can't replace that leadership, but you can at least replace somewhat the talent level in this separation in a guy like that. So, and there's not film on him. There's no film on this dude. So, but by the time you get to Penn State, they will have plenty of film on him.
I'm excited to see Isaiah World on that offensive line because I love that his last name is World, and I love that he is 6'8", well over 300 pounds. That is an absolute mammoth that any defensive end is going to have to try to get around.
Yeah, I like that.
I'm not as in love with Isaiah World as the rest of the world. Apparently,
yeah. I like his size. I don't know anything about his game, but I like that he is an absolute mammoth of a human.
He's got a CFB 26 name. Like this dude he was an auto-generated name, and then he's got the CFB 26 size. Like
for sure.
6'8", 300 plus pounds. Like somebody made this dude on a freaking video game.
Absolutely.
So there's one other team so we have them more as contender. You have them more as a dark horse here, Jeff. So Illinois. Will you talk about Illinois because I'm pretty sure you have them at 11-1.
I have them at second in the Big Ten. So remember a few minutes ago when I said it, we're going to clarify the Ohio State second. I lied. I meant to say that Ohio State was third for me. Illinois is second to me. Let me tell you why. You return 10 guys on that offense, 9 guys on the defense. You got Luke Altmaier. You got Brett Bielema, who's really instilling his culture there. And I don't know if people forgot or what, but Brett Bielema can freaking coach his tail off him. He had Wisconsin as a national powerhouse while he was there. He leaves. He comes back. I got to hear his story on part of my take on how he got back into coaching. Goes through Bill Belichick at the Patriots. Learned a lot there. Comes back to Illinois. And when I was watching Illinois play South Carolina last year, the biggest thing that stood out was South Carolina looked more talented.
That Brett Bielema and Shane Beamer were about to fight at midfield?
No. One of those coaches were about to fight. One of those coaches wanted to act like he was going to fight, but knew he didn't want that smoke. But in all seriousness, like the thing I noticed was Illinois was getting out athleted, but they weren't getting out techniqued because Illinois was always there. And they were swarm tackling. They were form tackling. They were not playing out of technique. And that is very, very great when you're at a school like Illinois where you're not getting the big time talent in the Big Ten. You're competing against Penn State. You're competing against Ohio State. You're competing against now USC and Oregon to get these guys to stay in these local areas. If you're able to coach that well on the defensive side of the ball and have these guys play gap sound team style football, that's really tough to beat. Well, now you have 9 of them coming back. That's going to be freaking awesome because now all these guys have gelled. They've played together. I like. Again, in this era, one of the biggest things you'll see are the teams that have played together for a long time to gel. I equate it to March Madness. You see these teams that are seniors.
I do that too.
The deep runs, and then you'll have like Duke come in and lose in the Sweet 16 because we have a bunch of true freshmen who are one-year wonders who leave. So I don't want people to lose the sight on how important it is that these guys have played together for a long time under the same coach. And then plus, like I really like Luke Altmaier. And I think he's really started to find who he was as a quarterback late in the year, and I think the ceiling is the roof, as Michael Jordan likes to say. If we keep going back to basketball, plus they have a weak schedule. I think the schedule is pretty weak. One of the weaker ones in the Big Ten. I think that helps.
All right, I got a couple things to pick out there a little bit, if I could, William.
Go for it.
I could see maybe that South Carolina is a little bit more talented than Illinois. I don't know if it was jump off the screen more talented than Illinois. Okay, like certainly not more different than Illinois playing Penn State or Ohio State. I mean that's for sure. But I'm with you on the Brett Bielema love, as we call him, Beetle. On the Eyes on Big podcast. Like I tried to tell Illinois fans, in fact, I think I pulled up the tweet from 5 years ago when he got hired because I said this is going to be a good hire for Illinois. Illinois fans were irate at the time. They wanted a couple different coaches, and he's proven out. I mean, as I've said on a couple different podcasts, this is not going to be a coach that the moment it's going to be too big for him, no matter who he's playing. If he happens to get his team to Indianapolis, they'll be prepared to play. I just don't know overall if I see the depth, okay? And I don't know overall if I see the difference maker on the offense. I see a lot of dudes that I like on the offense with obviously Luke Altmaier being, number one with that. I Hudson Clement that they got in the portal from West Virginia. Love that guy as my number 2 receiver. I don't know if I want him being number 1. So I would have loved if they could have somehow got Pat Bryant back. I would have a completely different take on Illinois being more explosive on offense. So don't get me wrong. Barry Lunny Jr., Luke Altmaier, this offensive line are going to be a good offense. I just don't know if I see 10 wins, 11 wins, a threat to win the Big Ten championship type of offense.
Yeah, I might be a little crazy. I'm just hoping that they're able to run the ball.
You are a little crazy.
I know I am. And but
they'll run the ball.
You got a guy like Caden Fagan who's freaking he's 250 pounds. That is
stay healthy.
Tank.
He's got to stay healthy.
That is true. Because they're going to use him like a workhorse. When you're that big, they're just going to slam the ball down your throat and just beg you to try and stop them. And then hopefully that opens up the passing lanes. But you're right. If they get into a game where they have to throw the ball 25 plus times, it's going to be tough.
Yep. Yeah, the part that concerns me is Josh McCray obviously transfers to Georgia, and Pat Bryant and Zachary Franklin are on the roster anymore this year. Your top running back, at least by terms of yards, and your top 2 receivers are all gone. So obviously, I'm not as high as Luke Altmaier. I think he's good. I don't necessarily know if Luke Altmaier is a guy that, down 4 points, 2 minutes left. Am I choosing him or am I choosing somebody else?
I'm choosing him. In fact, help me out. Penn State quarterback from about 8-9 years ago when they won the Big Ten championship.
Trace McSorley.
Thank you very much, Jake. Nice work. That's who he is. So I don't think Lukey Legs is going to have a great NFL career. Okay, he might be a little bit of a backup situation, but Trace McSorley came up with plays when he needed to. That's what Luke Altmaier does. So I love him as a college quarterback. He'll win a game this year. That they're come from behind, something like that.
Yeah, and Will talked about the schedule. I think the schedule is something that intrigues a lot of people because other than the Ohio State game, there's a lot of, I don't know what they're going to be on this.
Okay. And real quick, thanks, because I'd have forgot. I'm great at that. Is it one of the hardest schedules in the Big Ten? Wisconsin's got that all wrapped up themselves. But at Duke, okay, at Indiana, USC, Ohio State, folks, at Washington, okay, watch out for that, all right?
Oh, yeah.
And then everybody's just assuming Wisconsin's going to be ass. At Wisconsin, going against their former coach, I don't know, that is a much tougher schedule than I think a lot of people are saying. And, there's a reason this team that is so experienced, has so many people back, is still sitting at 7.5 at Vegas for their Vegas win total. So why is it that they are? Look at that schedule right there.
And I think that could be inflated by Indiana and USC. And again, who are they going to be? And we're going to talk about them later on. And then Duke, I think we find out who Illinois is quickly and who Duke is. I mean, because Duke is another one with a lot of question marks. You go down to Durham. I don't want to talk about playing in Durham because the last time we went there wasn't too good. I think I'm still sitting on the edge of my bed with my jaw on the ground watching that game. You're right; it is a tougher schedule. I might be a little bullish on saying they have a weak schedule. They scheduled USC for homecoming. There's some bulletin board material. That's going to be tough.
Yep.
Indiana is becoming a better Big Ten school. Kurt Cignetti's getting a lot of hype around that program. So they're going to Indiana. It's not going to be quiet. It's, people are excited about that program. And then you're right. Wisconsin is a tough place to play. It's late in the year. And I'm blanking on the quarterback saying they got him from Maryland.
Billy Edwards Jr.
Billy Edwards Jr. I don't hate Billy Edwards. I think he's a 65% passer last year, threw for about 2,500 yards. I think he's a pretty decent guy. I think he's better than what they had last year. And the dude from Van Dyke from Miami. So you're right. I'm just so bullish on how good I think Illinois is going to be that I lose sight of what everybody else is.
And don't get me wrong, I very much like Illinois. I have joked this offseason that so many people now like them that they're not a dark horse, they're a bright horse. Yeah. People are paying attention to them. So now let's see what happens when the light is on them. Because a funny little stat is, in the history of Illinois football, they've never put 2 10-win seasons together back to back. Every time they've had a big year and have had a chance to step up to really grab the momentum in the program, it hasn't happened. Now, I know that should not play into these players and these coaches. If they heard me say that, I would expect them to be annoyed at me, but like it just plays into my psyche.
So we'll jump into our dark horses. There's 3 teams that we all agreed on. I might have a little bit of a hot take, that one that you guys both agreed on that I did not agree on.
Okay.
But so there's 3 teams that we all agreed that would be considered dark horses. And this is, if the season works out well, then you never know. You get lucky and it works out that you could make the Big Ten championship game. First one we got here is Nebraska, which I feel like we've been yelling about Nebraska, and everybody thinks it for the last 10 years. Hey, this is finally it. Like maybe they're going to finally put it together. But I mean, Matt Rule talked about it, that they lost, I think, almost every game by it was like 8 points or less last year. So they were in every single one. You obviously have year 2 of Dylan Raiola. And I mean, Jeff, are we falling for it again? Or maybe this is the time that, hey, maybe we're going to see 9 wins out of Nebraska?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would have them. I do not have them as a dark horse to win the Big Ten championship. I'm not sure if I have them as a dark. Yeah, I don't have them. I would maybe have them as a dark horse to make the playoffs. Sneak in, that type of thing. I mean, it's easier to make the playoffs, the college football playoffs, than it is the Big Ten championship. So that's like a layer down. There are, certainly Nebraska needed to take the step up that they did last year. Obviously, Dylan Raiola coming back is a huge thing. I still think they're a year away. There's a lot of things that I can tell Matt Rule has got the ship going in the right direction. Ever since he got hired, as we said on the Eyes on Big podcast, there's finally an adult in the room, because boy, there certainly wasn't when Scott Frost was there. So the things are going down the path. I just feel like so many people are just like, oh, 3rd year, Matt Rule, this is what he does. I just don't know if I see that quite yet. Now, that's where I'm officially at. But if you want to talk about a schedule that is borderline easy, or certainly down the path of manageable, it's Nebraska's schedule. So if that's the thing that pushes somebody into thinking they can get to that 9-10 win thing, I don't totally not understand it. I just need to see it more.
And my biggest devil's advocate moment for this one, talk about a dark horse to make the playoff, another Dabo Sweeneyism. They remember November. The last 2 teams that Nebraska plays are Penn State and Iowa. Iowa, I would have Iowa in the contender category. I am very high on Iowa this year. I'm forgetting the quarterback's name, Mark Gornowski. Gronowski, yeah, thank you.
There you go. I like that too.
Anyway, this is not the Iowa section, but I'm just saying, so the last 2 games that they play, the last 2 games that we're going to remember seeing Nebraska take the field are going to be against Penn State and Iowa. What are they going to do against those teams? If they lose those 2 games, if they go 10-2 and they lose 2 games in a row, that could even put a big smudge on their resume to get into the playoffs. So that's my biggest hesitation. The hardest part of their schedule is their last 2 games. And then obviously you have the hardest part of the schedule is their last 2 games. You have USC in the work.
An intriguing one is their 4th game. They host Michigan, but Sharon Moore is not coaching in that game because they have opted to use that as his.
I don't know if that's official yet. I don't know if that's official yet. That's still out there, but it's a probable thing. I'll say this: that Jake might like this hot take. I'm more anxious, if this is me being a Nebraska fan, I am more anxious for that Cincinnati game than I am Michigan. I feel better if I'm a Nebraska fan.
Ooh.
Cincinnati's going to be a little bit saltier than people expect. Okay. I know it's not really going to be a neutral field, but still, it's not a home game. You get Michigan at home, potentially without their head coach, definitely with either a new quarterback or a freshman, quarterback itself. Like at beginning of the year, you would expect Nebraska to be, still be on the healthy trail, because I'm a little bit concerned about their overall depth. But yeah, that's my take there. And then the other one that people seem to just throw away when they're looking at Nebraska's schedule is at Minnesota. It's a tough place to play. It's going to be a Friday night game, so short week, have to travel up to Minnesota. It's a tough game. So like, that's what I'm saying. Like this, it is a manageable schedule, but there are definitely going to be some landmines they got to manage.
Minnesota gave everybody fits last year. There was rarely any time that there wasn't a time. The only game that was even big was Iowa. They lost only by 17 points. Everything else was one score. And I think the third best player in the conference is on that Minnesota defense. I think Coy Parrish. I put this out. I think Coy Parrish wins the Jim Thorpe Award this year. I think he is that good. He had 5 interceptions as a freshman, and I think he is going to be like, that whole game plan is going to be, how do we just get Coy Parrish to do anything and just get the ball?
This just in, Jeff. Jake just admitted that Coy Parrish is better than Caleb Downs.
Yeah, that's putting out there.
Their best player.
Yeah, you kind of said it. We'll see if Coy Parrish gets as many balls thrown at him this year. Like, certainly coordinators and quarterbacks are going to know where he's at, but the dude's got great instincts.
He plays in the box too. So I mean, if they're not throwing to him, he comes up and plays in the box against a team like in Illinois. Actually, I don't know if they play Illinois, but if he comes up and plays in the box against a team like Nebraska, if they're struggling, they're trying to get the ball rolling, he comes up in the box. That dude can freaking hit. He can slam people, and I'm pretty sure he does a lot on special teams too. Does he not?
Yeah, he was a returner last year too.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Don't be shocked when they line him up a wide receiver just because, since everybody feels they need to have a Travis Hunter on their team now, and we got a DB that plays both ways.
I got a nickname for you, Jeff, for Coy. You know how they say you put him on an island, you're gonna put him in the Coy pond.
Yep.
Hey, when you go to throw,
that's pretty good. I like that. I like that. Baby. That's pretty good.
Koi pond. Koi pond. So the next one we had USC. I think USC here. I think people are starting to buy back into Lincoln Riley a little bit. I think we overhyped Lincoln Riley a little too much at one point because he had Caleb Williams, but there was definitely a transition that needed to happen. But you bring over your Heisman quarterback. Miller Moss doesn't work out. Not the best fit. Jaden Maeva seemed like he was doing pretty well. Full offseason, we saw what he was at UNLV. Jacoby Lane and Mekhi Lemon, I think, are two really good wide receivers that I think we're going to see a little bit more of a transition back to what USC was, or what Lincoln Riley was at Oklahoma. Not quite that 550 yards of offense every time, no defense. I think it's going to manage a little bit more in the middle because D'Anthony Lynn, I think, has been pretty solid as a defense coordinator. They took a step forward. They were not by far the worst, because Alex Grinch is the worst defensive coordinator in the history of college football somehow, and keeps getting hired. And Scott Frost, baby, he hired him. You talk about adults in the room, and he went and hired a terrible DC. Jeff, I mean, am I like, where are we thinking for USC? Like, are we thinking that this maybe like Lincoln Riley's going to cool his seat down a little bit this year?
I think so. If 8-4, 9-3 cools the seat. If you don't think that cools the seat, if you think Lincoln Riley has to get into the college football playoff to get him off the hot seat, I don't know if I necessarily see that, but they're in the running. Like, I'm going to have a poll that's going to come out at some point and say, assuming Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State are the top 3 teams, if you had to put all your money on the 4th team in the Big Ten getting to the college football playoff, who would that be? I think USC is going to be one of the teams that I would put in there, but so like they're in the running. I to a certain degree, I think the Lincoln Riley shade has gotten a little too dark. Okay. It's the guy can still develop a quarterback. So I kind of wonder if Jaden Maeva is ready to take a jump here this year, and then I really like the fact that D'Anton Lynn is doing work on that defense. Like, I don't think enough people paid attention to just how much better that defense was from the sounds of it, which I do not understand, but like they really were trying to train their defensive players to be more athletes than brute force guys before D'Anton Lynn got there. Lynn was like, guys, we have to stand up at the point of attack. Otherwise, we're not going to make it in this conference. So like they started to get, so I think you see a little bit more of that. So like, I think the USC defense could be borderline good this year. Okay. So then my real question is, can they look at this and make it more of a balanced full team, like that I don't have to outscore everybody. I wonder if that's it's going to be. And then my other big concern is the offensive line. Like USC has got a lot of answers that they got to come up with the offensive line, but that's the only thing I'm seeing that like uber concerns me with USC.
Well, and you think about like you're saying with D'Anton Lynn, changing it from a more athlete, flashy defense to a punch you in the mouth. You're playing in the Big Ten. What does everybody know about the Big Ten? I mean, we talk about stereotypes when it comes to conferences. Some of them are real. There's a reason the stereotypes are there, is because they're real. The Big Ten plays smash mouth, freaking hit you in the mouth football week in and week out. You cannot play that schedule and out athlete people week in and week out. It's just not going to happen. You have to have some dudes who aren't afraid to put their face in the fan. And D'Anton Lynn has done that. He was doing that at UCLA. I thought he was a great defense coordinator there. I thought it was a phenomenal hire. Like you're saying, like the defense has just taken off since then. Jaden Maiava, watching him last year, like grow. We saw him grow into who he was late in the year. I mean, they beat UCLA, they beat Nebraska. They start to really take these steps forward as a team, and they started to gel. So I think that's where all this hype comes from. The receivers are phenomenal. I like Mekhi Lemon. Who's the other guy on the team? Jacoby Lane. Love Jacoby Lane.
Yep. He is amazing.
But I like to play devil's advocate. Who's going to run the football? You got a weak offensive line. Sometimes to help a weak offensive line, you run that freaking football. You get those guys going forward. Pass rush, what we used to always say is how slow can you lose? Run blocking is, hey, let me be a man. Let me put my hand in the dirt and punch somebody in the mouth and really get this aggression out. Really helps build the confidence of the offensive lineman. Who's going to run the football?
And I don't think you have to be 100% a downhill rushing attack to have success in the Big Ten. Okay, you can scheme a rushing attack. So,
look at Oregon. So I'll say this: you don't need it. You don't need
there.
You go. Yeah,
correct. So, like, I don't need USC to cave in my front seven all game long. That's not what they want to be. I don't expect them to be that, but they have to stick with the run. They have to have the threat of the rushing attack that they're going to scheme open. I think you even saw that a little bit last year with Ohio State, like scheme it open and make it work. So like so they can do that to stick with it.
Yeah. I mean, this team is very capable. They took Penn State to the wire. I mean, they beat LSU. So it's not like
look at their entire schedule last year. You want to talk about a team that had a lot of close losses. I mean, they were right there with Notre Dame, Penn State, somebody else I'm missing too, like a couple really quality teams. Michigan.
They probably beat Michigan if they don't allow a 70 run right in the last 2 minutes of the game.
Listen to this. Michigan, 3 points. Minnesota, 7 points. Penn State, 3 points in overtime. Maryland, 1 point. Washington, 5 points. Notre Dame,
there you go.
2 touchdowns, 14 points. And that was a good game. That one was going back and forth, and then Notre Dame just kind of pulled away 100%. Late because they played that.
Notre Dame had 2 99-yard pick sixes in the final couple minutes of the game.
Right. So
that's a team that got all the way to the final. So, like, I don't know, man. Like, that's where I just keep looking at that schedule from last year and do see continuity coming back that people aren't paying attention. People aren't really talking about USC. I don't know. It seems like they're in a pretty good spot.
Well, you made the comment earlier, Jeff, of like, what is going to get them off the hot seat? Well, I think there's 2 different answers there. What is going to take the fans off the hot seat? What is going to take the administration to take them off the hot seat? I think the administration's bar is lower. I think 8-4, it's going to lower the temperature there. I think the fans are going to want 10-2, 11-1, but I think realistically going to 8-4, 9-3, the administration will cool that down significantly.
I think 9 wins. Everybody's happy. Administration and the brass. I think.
Yep.
And then that helps with this big time recruiting class they have coming. I think right now they're a top 3 recruiting class. That could really solidify things.
Yep. Agreed.
So the final team that the 3 of us all have on here is Iowa. And Iowa, new quarterback, Phil Parker still there on defense. New offense last year. Tim Lester improved the offense. I think there's a lot of curiosity about Mark Gronowski coming over from South Dakota or South Dakota State, one of those Dakota schools. I think there's a lot of people curious, what is that transition going to look like? Are we going to see more of a passing attack? I don't think people were expecting him to come in and throw for 5,000 yards. I don't think anybody's expecting him to throw for 3,500. But will we see a formidable passing attack be something that Iowa has consistently? And we're not looking at the last couple of years where quarterbacks are throwing for 95 yards in a game, Jeff. I mean, what's the expectation here with Iowa?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking me, because I recorded on Iowa myself, and I forgot to bring up like 5 things I wanted to make sure I talked on my own podcast, and I forgot. So the first thing I want to say is Caleb Johnson gone, right? So any Iowa fans that think the rushing attack won't take a step back are probably lying to themselves. I think Caleb Johnson was pretty darn special last year, especially how he could turn 7-yard runs into 40-yard runs. So it'll still be a good running attack by committee, but not excellent like last year. However, if you balance that off of a passing attack that's efficient, okay? I just keep saying the same thing about Iowa's passing attack. An efficiency to the offense, okay? To the passing attack. I think that then makes the entire offense better for Iowa. Jake, I'm proud of you for bringing up Tim Lester. It's gotten a little frustrating with me in that fans on the Twitter sphere just making fun of Iowa's offensive coordinator for years and years. They go and get one. They jump up 11 points per game scoring last year. It's like nobody even notices, like Tim Lester was a huge addition for Iowa. I think he's took pressure off of Kirk Ferentz with his, overall head coaching ability that he's brought to the table to that position. So overall, I want to make sure, I'm not saying Iowa is going to explode off the page or the stat line for offense, but I'm looking for it to be more efficient.
I think they could, Jeff. I think they could. I'm a little high on Iowa. They're my favorite team in the Big Ten this year. The team I'm the highest on taking a jump forward. And I think I want to go back to the rushing attack, because the biggest difference in this rushing attack, yes, you lose Caleb Johnson, and that sucks. You cannot replace a Caleb Johnson. But what you can do is add a wrinkle to the offense that you haven't had in a while. And what Mark Garner, I cannot pronounce his last name.
Gronowski
does that Iowa has not had in a long time, and sure as hell did not have in Cade McNamara, is he can run. And he can run well, and he can run fast, and he is shifty. So he's going to be able to add a layer to this offense that Hawkeye Nation hasn't seen in a while. So, yes, you lose Caleb Johnson, but now you have a different style of offense. You have a different style of even rushing attack that you can attack the defense that the defenses aren't used to seeing from this Hawkeye offense. So I'm very excited on what he can do. I think his game translates really well over to the P4. My biggest issue is we go to the wide receivers. All the wide receivers developed enough to help him out and help him adapt to this new, tougher environment and in Power 4 Big Ten football.
Yeah, you're bringing up great points. It's nice to hear some of those. Sometimes you get frustrated as a fan. I do not hide my fandom with Iowa at all. Now I'm really going to show my fandom, which is, if you want to comp for Mark Gronowski, okay, you ready for this? It's Tim Tebow. Okay, now this is a poor man's Tim Tebow. Yeah, a little bit skinny. Like, he can throw a little bit better ball than Tim Tebow. Maybe not quite as much of a bruiser, but the quarterback power plays were huge for him at SDSU. I'd be shocked if Lester doesn't bring that into the table. So I agree with you there, William. Not the most polished thrower in the world. He's got a strong arm. Okay, when he sets his foot and delivers it, it's not the smoothest delivery you'll ever see. I think there's going to be a lot of Iowa fans that are going to see him throw for the first time and are going to be amazed that it doesn't look like Joe Montana.
There's a Tim Tebow comp right there.
There you go. That's where it comes from, right there. So I'll be interested. I think Tim Lester, coming over from the NFL, probably is more used to using running backs by committee, which is what Iowa will do this year. They got, kind of 3 different style of running back a little bit. So that's what's going to be interesting with the receivers. I try to do, glass half empty and full at the same time, I guess, but the Iowa receivers will be much better that I believe people would think they would be. In this case, I would not blame anybody for not thinking much of the Iowa receiving core. It's been quite awful for quite some time. You're going to see it step up. Reese Vanderzee is going to be a guy that is going to show out. Jacob Gill is a really good number 2 receiver, and we got a couple tight ends like we usually do. So like the pieces are there. Yeah, we still got tight ends that are on the roster. But by the way, that's another thing Iowa fans are going to have to get used to. Tight ends will take a step back under the Lester regime than where they had been before. So it's a little bit of transition there.
Well, and you can, set your clock to death, taxes, and Iowa defense. So I just know the Hawkeye defense is going to be phenomenal this year. I know they've lost 6 guys on that defense. Don't care.
Phil Parker is defensive coordinator. So as long as Phil Parker's there, I'm going to have a lot of confidence in them being able to play really good defense.
Yeah. Don't care. So a lot of these games where they don't have to rely on the new quarterback to win the games. The defense is going to keep them in most of these games.
Yeah, I will say I'm open to the offense going to win some games. I'm okay seeing that. I just want to make sure that's clear. Iowa
just in case anybody's curious, you would really enjoy some offense.
I thought y'all loved punters over there.
We do love punters, by the way. Our special teams, punter, kicker are both excellent. I think we have the best special teams in the country. No joke, no sarcasm there. I mean, it plays into us big time. The defense did take a little bit of step back last year. I have chuckled listening to other podcasts saying, boy, Iowa's defense really showed some issues last year. I think they were 19th in the country in total defense.
That's issues compared to them.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. So I think the secondary will take a step up in athleticism, but the linebackers they're going to be a gigantic work in progress. So we'll have to see how that goes.
Yeah. So that's the 3 teams that we all agreed could be dark horses. Right scenario, you never know what happens, and maybe they could be that 4th team that possibly sneaks into the playoff. There's 3 other teams that we had that we didn't quite fully agree on. William, there's one that you have on here that you have as a dark horse. I'm gonna let you go ahead and riff about why you are the biggest Kurt Signetti guy on this planet.
Well, so again, I come back to I didn't realize I liked him as much as I did, but I was looking at the schedule. They can win that one. They can win that one. Well, yeah, they can win that one. But you talk about your coin flip games. You got Illinois, Iowa, Oregon, and Penn State. They are capable to win most of those. I don't think they stand a chance against Penn State. I think we'll get a similar situation what they had with Ohio State last year. So going to Oregon. Oregon has a lot of question marks. I think Oregon wins that game, but Oregon has a lot of question marks. If I want to focus on Indiana, and we talked about this a little bit before the podcast, I don't know what to think of Fernando Mendoza. I did not like him coming in originally. I'm a big Maple Missile Curtis Rourke guy. Loved Curtis Rourke. So for them to just to cast him aside so quickly just made my heart hurt after what he did for that town, for Bloomington, Indiana. Y'all should be ashamed of yourself. But as I'm listening to other podcasts and really just trying to all right, let me counter what my thoughts are. Let me counter these emotional feelings. Mendoza does add a wrinkle to this offense with his legs. We cannot deny that. Obviously, the news came out that Curtis Rourke had torn his ACL at some point early in the season last year, jacked up his thumb. So, I mean, if anything, Fernando Mendoza is healthy. But when I go back and compare the two last year, they're very similar. 65% passers, both of them, similar passing yards. And honestly, I like Indiana's pass catchers a lot better than I like Cal's. Now, what Cal had that I don't think Indiana had was Jay Knott. I know Indiana didn't have Jay Knott last year, so that helps a lot when you're going to throw the ball. Now, I was hurt a good bit last year, so that may have that may nullify that argument. But the biggest question mark on Indiana is who is Fernando Mendoza? What does he do? And since my hype has grown as of this morning when I did this prediction, I get Indiana in the dark horse contender area.
Yep.
I hate that I have them above Iowa because I like Iowa a lot more than Indiana. Honestly, I really wanted to have Iowa in the top 4. I'm, again, not to pander to you, Jeff. I am the biggest Iowa truther this year. I am going to pander away. This is this is Pandera. You can have your sandwich however you want, and you can have your Iowa football however you want. So.
No, that's a full dad joke right there. Full dad joke.
And then the defense, I think the defense is going to take a small step back, But I think Cignetti, I mean, that's what he's been able to do is establish a great
Yeah.
defense wherever he's gone. So I'm feeling good about the Indiana defense. I think I might be a little too high on them. I could be easily swayed off of this fence. Like, just the wind blows one way, I'm off of it.
You won't get me to get you off the fence, the Indiana fence. I mean, I'm pretty bullish on Indiana. The deeper I look into them, you do have to factor in Kirkcinetti. I mean, it's not like he just last year was the first year he won. I mean, he looked great, coming into Indiana.
Did you Google him?
I did Google him. At some point, I'm
Okay.
like, you know what? I actually should Google him. And I'm like, wow, like he actually has been coaching for quite a while. No wonder he told us to do that. So they've got all Big Ten selections back on defense. Got a couple candidates for it on offense. I think this is an underrated offensive line that Indiana brings to the table. You talked about running back, maybe not quite the bell cow that Mendoza had before, but Roman Hemby is pretty good. Big Ten running back. He's solidified himself. Really good wide receiver options as well. And as far as Mendoza, I mean, we kind of talked about it. I will be interested to see just how efficient he is with the football. I don't think Curtis Rourke probably got enough credit for that. He was really good at anticipating throws. Like, he knew where that ball was supposed to go. So we just haven't seen that yet with Mendoza. But if he can be, above average for efficiency, accuracy, what he brings to the table with his legs, I think it's something that Mike Shanahan and Kurt Cignetti can really work with.
Yeah, and not to get too graphic, but the game that just reiterates in my brain over and over again with Mendoza is the Miami game last year, where he peed down his leg. I mean, late in the game, they should have won that game, and he just peed down his leg and forgot how to play football. And that's the game I cannot get over. Sometimes that happens with me. I'm watching a guy, and then I'll watch him in a game where they struggle or they do great. Jake likes to make fun of me. I'm high on Miller Moss, and I don't think I can shake the bias of watching him march down the field and beat LSU, just throwing dime after dime. So I think on the opposite side with Fernando Mendoza, it's hard for me to get that stink off of him, if we're being honest. But I do. One thing I didn't forget to mention, I love Elijah Surratt and I love Omar Cooper. I think Omar Cooper is not being talked about enough. I think he's a very polished route runner. I think he's going to be able to provide similarities to what Elijah Surratt does. So I don't know. The ceiling is the roof. Again, to come back to Michael Jordan.
Yeah, and
I do an all underrated team every year. It's going to be half Hoosiers this year. I mean, it's even after last year, it's still the case.
The one thing about Indiana this year, we're going to learn about them a lot quicker, because last year the biggest criticism was, we're entering November and they still haven't played a team with a winning record, or they haven't played a team that's, got less than 3 losses. Well, before the end of September, they're going to have Illinois and Iowa, and their first game in October is Oregon. So they are going to play teams that are going to be in bowl games well before the midpoint of the season. Yeah. So if Indiana is going to be good again, we'll know it way earlier. It's not going to take until the middle of November to know if Indiana's good.
Let me ask you this. We've got an Ohio State guy, an Iowa guy, and a Clemson guy. What is good enough for Indiana that they don't get made fun of for how far they dropped off? Like, how many wins? William?
8.
I was going to say 8 as well. I think 8 and 4, and you've built something. This isn't just an absolute mass. Yeah. This isn't Florida State going from 12-0 to 2-10.
You might still have some haters, but I told you so. 9 wins, I think nobody's talking. 8 wins, I think is for the majority.
Yep. I totally agree. 9 is 100. Then you'll get a little heat. Yep, fair enough.
Yeah, 9 is 100%. I agree with you on that.
I think there's 4 games they could, like you said, Illinois, Iowa, Oregon, Penn State. I think that they could win one of those as well. I think there's a win in there. I could see them losing a game like a Wisconsin or maybe like a UCLA if they step it up somehow, if Nico just has the game of his life. But there's really no other games that they should lose. So if you fall to 7-5, that's probably not good. And if somehow you're below that, you're not good.
Yeah. I mean, that stretch right there, Illinois at Iowa at Oregon. I mean, that's tough. Oh, that's a tough run right there. Like you get through that run 1 and 2, you're pretty good. You're not totally upset with that. Yeah. And I would just say, I don't know, maybe after that run, Michigan State comes into town and maybe their dual threat quarterback makes things a little bit more interesting. It's just funny. Like, go back and listen to your own words back in July, August, what we think we know. And then all of a sudden these games come about and all of a sudden it's October 18th and we're like, I tell you, Indiana better watch out for Michigan State this weekend. I don't know. That could be one of those right there.
He did Indiana last year. He called Indiana being a team last year. Now, we weren't talking about them being 10-0 at one point.
I said 9 wins, though. I said 9 wins.
You said 9. Did you really?
Yes, I have the clip. Wow. I can send it to you. I was getting made. So this is why I'm so.
I predicted them 7-5. I thought Indiana fans were going to move in with me. They were so happy that I saw 7 wins, and they went, so 9. Unbelievable, Billy.
I said 9, and I said I would not be shocked if it's 10. And I went on this long spiel about Curtis Rourke because, again, I'm telling you, I just love the Maple Missile. Watching him at Ohio, watching him on Maction on the weeknights, like I just fell in love with it. Like the way that dude balled. So anyway, I got a little carried away with them, but it ended up helping me out a little bit that they were good.
Nice.
Jeff, you and I both have Washington and Michigan as potential dark horses. I mean, Damon Williams is probably a guy getting a ton of hype for somebody who didn't play a ton last year. Obviously, he came in, in relief sometime. He had a really good bowl game. Is it Damon Williams? Is it Jedd Fisch? Like, what is it for you that you think that Washington could be taking a step up out of, the 6-win territory to, pushing the 8, 9, 10 threshold?
Yeah, I really do like Jedd Fisch. Like, to a certain degree, there's so many of these coaches in the Big Ten that you have to remind yourself that they're good coaches, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's just tons of good, and Jedd Fisch is kind of one. Like, look at what he's done in his previous stop. Is it Arizona, right? Correct. Arizona before Washington. I think it was his third year when he kind of, second or third year when he got things going. So that's what we're looking at for Washington. And I love me a good trifecta. So you got Damon Williams, Jonah Coleman, and Denzel Boston, right? Like quarterback, running back, wide receiver. That could be the best quarterback, running back, wide receiver combo in the Big Ten. I mean, as far as established, we'll see. Speaking of Jedd Fisch, when I had my Washington Insider, I mean, he absolutely blew me away on what Jedd Fisch has been saying in the offseason about Damon Williams. He's not even like remotely trying to hide this thing at all. He is basically saying Damon Williams is going to be a Heisman candidate, not only before he leaves Washington, but like this year. That's how bullish Jedd Fisch is on Damon Williams. So, like, is he seeing something? Maybe it's not just what he showed in that bowl game. So, like, there's a lot to like about Washington. Don't love their lines. I thought their front seven got a little bit better as the year went on last year, but hopefully that offensive line of theirs can gel a little bit more this year. But maybe they're still a year away. But boy, I tell you what, they're going to get somebody on their schedule.
The thing about Washington last year is they had to replace, people joke literally everybody. No, it was like absolutely everybody. Like the whole offensive line, Michael Penix, all the running backs, all the wide receivers. Like he walked in and had, I really believe, I think it was 0 returning starters on the offense last year. If there was one, but I know for a fact it was like the 2 deep on the offensive line. It wasn't even just the first offensive line. It was the 2 deep on the offensive line, the trio of wide receivers, your Heisman candidate quarterback. Like I forget that maybe their tight end was back, but it was a ton of guys, and nobody followed him from Arizona. It was like next to nothing. You have Tet McMillan and Noah Fafita. They said, nope, we're saying Arizona.
That shocked me.
Yeah. So
you really hurt Noah Fafita's progress.
You're starting with a blank slate. So going 6-7 was honestly probably a win for them because replacing all of that and still making a bowl game is a pretty strong start. If you had the expectation that anybody had the expectation he was going to come in there and win 9 or 10 games, they were losing it because you had to start from a blank slate, which can be good, can be bad, depending on the situation you're walking into. Like, a Purdue situation, starting with a blank slate, probably good because it wasn't going very well. Maybe you do need a blank slate to start over, but starting with a blank slate at, Indiana worked out for Cignetti. You just go, you clear the slate, you bring a bunch of guys over.
Sure.
But here, obviously, you had a national championship contender team, and everybody left. Damon Williams obviously played phenomenal in that Sun Bowl against Louisville. They gave him a chance to win. I don't think, like you said, I don't think Washington's going to be like a playoff team, but I think they're going to be fun to watch.
Yes. They also have one of the best names in college football in Ephesians Prysock. That is
absolutely.
He's a good prospect, but that's
that name you got right, William. That one you named. You nailed. I'm impressed. I'll say this: out of Ohio State, at Michigan, Illinois, and Oregon, they're getting one of those teams. Those games.
Yeah.
They're winning one of those.
I'd believe that. They're going to catch somebody off guard, like that Ohio State Washington game. Ohio State going across the country. Dude. That's going to be an intimidating environment. You've got a young quarterback going on the road. Like, it's a brand new team. Like that one, whatever the spread is, take Washington to cover right now. I don't know. I don't know if Washington's going to win, but that's going to be single digits for sure. And don't be shocked if Washington has the lead like in the fourth quarter.
Dude, totally agree. It's refreshing to hear an Ohio State fan say that, because that's what I'd be feeling if I was a Buckeye fan.
Ohio State has a sneaky tougher schedule this year because they go to Illinois, they go to Washington, they go to Michigan, they get Texas and Ohio, they get Texas and Penn State at home. But those 3 road games, I really do believe they could drop one of them.
Jeff, Absolutely. Don't let him trick you. Don't let him. He's trying to jinx it. He's trying to reverse jinx it.
Little reverse. I respect the reverse psychology game. I respect it.
He does this all the time, and he claims he's not. But I know. Listen. I went to a farmer school. I know all about jinxing.
Hey, speaking
Jake, don't ever admit it. Don't ever admit it out loud.
Reverse jinx. Hey, Michigan's the final one we got on here, and I think that there is some intriguing pieces on this offense. They bring over Justice Haynes from Alabama, running back. They brought in Donovan McCulley from Indiana, who didn't play last year. If he played, it was like a game. Quarterback situation, best true freshman quarterback prospect in a long time. Mm-hmm. Defense. The big question to me is that interior. I mean, you had arguably of the last 10 years, the 2 best tandem of defensive tackles just eating space between Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham. I mean, how often does a team have one defensive tackle go in the first round, let alone 2 defensive tackles go in the first round? Yep. I mean, those 2, they single-handedly beat Ohio State. Like Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham beat Ohio State last year, and they're gone. I think Michigan's defense is still going to be really good, but I think maybe we see the offense improve and the defense take a little bit of a step back. Am I losing my nuts here, or what?
I think Michigan's defense will be just fine. So I don't have tons of concerns with Michigan's defense. I know they lost 2.
Oh, I don't either. I just think it's going to the run defense is going to take a step back to me.
If in the sense that the run defense was so incredible the previous 2, 3, 4 years that they can't. So sure, I'll go with that. But I don't think we're ever going to look at the Michigan defense and say, boy, this run defense is really, stopping them from winning these big games. I think it'll be fine. I think overall the defense will be either great to excellent. I tell you what concerns me is I still don't know if I'm seeing an offensive line that is going to be able to do what Sharon Moore wants to do, which is run the ball downfield. So is this going to be a porous or subpar offensive line? No. But if it's not, I wonder what Sharon Moore wants to do. Okay. Because if that's the case, if you just cannot, rely on Justice Hayes and that offensive line, you are now looking at a true freshman quarterback with a lot of question marks on who he's going to throw to. So I don't think I'm a Michigan hater, but I think I'm a Michigan questioner right now for how things are going to look.
Yeah, that's my biggest knock is, yes, you have Bryce Underwood. Yes, he's uber talented. Who's he going to throw the football to?
You don't have Colston Loveland there either.
Yeah, Colston Loveland is gone, and that was like, man, I don't know how you don't replace a guy like that, but you also you didn't have any receivers. You don't talk about Penn State being empty in that cupboard. Michigan's right there with them.
I like Donovan McCulley. I saw him do some good things at Indiana before Siggy got there. So as long as we can assume that he's healthy now, I do like Donovan McCulley. But kind of with our theme, William, is that I just don't know if I like wholesale changes that I have to see. And that's what I see is not a lot of continuity just with the throw game. So you got a new quarterback, you got quite a new faces for pass catchers. I think it's going to be something that they wind up getting figured out. I would like to play him earlier in the year than the end of the year, hint, hint, Jake. But for a while there, I think it's going to be tough.
The question is, you say early in the year, week 2, they go on the road to Oklahoma, a team that is being viewed as a potential dark horse in the SEC. That if you've got a true freshman quarterback, which assuming Underwood is the starter, going on the road to Oklahoma and then 2 weeks later playing on the road at Nebraska, you're throwing him to the fire real fast. There's a part of me that's concerned of a true freshman quarterback going into this. What happens when he makes his first mistake? What happens when he throws that first interception? Is it snowball effect? Does he have the composure? Or, does Sherrone Moore get happy feet and, think about bringing Mikey Keenan? He's got other quarterbacks, and he's got one that's got experience. Is he going to get, cold feet and do that? Or is he just going to let Underwood ride it out and, let's see what happens?
I think so. I think the amount of money
he rotated like 7 quarterbacks last year.
Right. I think he's been there, done that, and does not want to go through that again if he doesn't have to.
No.
So I and Jack, we've talked about Jeff. Sorry if you were going to answer this. I got a little excited. Mikey Keene and Davis Warren, I don't think we'll see that football field unless they're blowing somebody out or if Bryce Underwood gets hurt.
I think Davis Warren is hurt technically.
Davis Warren. I was a little bit higher on Mikey Keene apparently than I should have been. My podcast partner Jordan, Michigan fan, has kind of redirected me. Like I wouldn't expect too much out of Mikey Keene. I thought he looked good versus Michigan last year when they played Fresno State, but I'm not 100% sure how healthy Mikey Keene is either. But I do think he is the backup. Now, the one thing that we have to at least bring into the equation here is what happens if Bryce Underwood is a god, like essentially as good as these it doesn't, I'm almost to the point where it doesn't seem to be thrown out there as even being a possibility. We saw a guy at Clemson, by the way, that stepped in as a true freshman and looked like he deserved to be on the field right from the first snap. So I'm not necessarily putting him in Trevor Lawrence's category. Don't get me wrong, but his recruiting pedigree is. So we'll see. But it's going to be intriguing television.
But the biggest difference between Trevor Lawrence and Bryce Underwood is that Trevor Lawrence got put into a situation with T. Higgins, Justin Ross, Amari Rodgers.
Point.
I mean, he had dudes that just to throw it to. And then, not to mention one of the best running backs in Clemson history, and Travis Etienne to do this number right here too.
Yep.
So
and established schemes all along the offense that Dabo and that were.
And zero sanctions and zero determinations of when that head coach is going to be suspended. None of those things were looming over the Clemson program at that point. Just to throw a shot. There you go, Jake. That was for you.
When I look at this Michigan schedule, though, especially early in the year, before you get to November 1st, there is not many games you look at and go, oh, yeah, they've got this one in the bag. I mean, they've got their 2 non-conference games with New Mexico and Central Michigan. They'll cruise through those. Wisconsin, I think they're going to beat. I think there's a lot of people like we've talked about are down on Wisconsin, but USC, Washington, you've got the rivalry game at Michigan State this year, at Nebraska. Before November 1, I could see them having 1 loss. I could see them having 3 losses. I could see them having 4 losses. You talked about, what if Bryce Underwood is a god? Okay, well, they're probably maybe 1 loss. What if Bryce Underwood has a significant adjustment period? Then I think they're a 4-loss team or 3-loss team at this point.
I have them losing,
and even gods, and even college football gods can get hurt. The guy's got to stay healthy on top of all of that.
Yeah, I mean, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Wisconsin, USC, Washington. If Michigan State takes a big step forward with Aiden Childs and Nick Marsh, I mean, those two that could be a really dominant duo. I'm not too worried about Purdue. They got their entire roster rated, but Barry Odom is good. I think they will be good soon.
Hey, Arizona State went from predicted last in the media poll of their conference to the playoff team. So why can't Purdue do it too?
I can tell you why. They have a tight end on Ohio State. They have a defensive end on Clemson. They have a safety on Oregon. I keep going down that list.
Yep, that would be the reasons.
Yeah. Well, so I don't want to take too much more time, but Jeff, give me one team that we haven't talked about so far that you think could be a team that we're talking about that pushing that 8-9 win mark before the end of the season.
So you read my mind with that, because there is one team that I'm talking myself into, but the question of the offseason seems to be who's going to be this year's Indiana, right? So erroneously, people have said Illinois, but Illinois won 10 games last year. That doesn't count. So really, you got to talk about somebody that I would say didn't make a bowl game last year that could really jump up. I think Michigan State has got a chance. Okay. So like Jonathan Smith, that dude can coach. We've been talking on this pod, like it's just a ton of coaches in this conference that know how to put a game plan together and get their guys lined up. So I think Jonathan Smith, second year, with a very talented quarterback. I know he looked shaky last year, but man, I saw the talent when he rolls out and just uses his legs. Childs is he's impressive, and he's got Nick Marsh to throw to. I think they were kind of figuring things out along the offensive line. More questions probably on the defense, but like overall, it's just I want to see talent that pops, and I want to see a coach that I believe can pull it together in order to make that jump. I think Michigan State has got those things in front of them.
Will, who's yours?
So before I even say who mine is, I got to say something 3 times. Mark Gronowski, Mark Gronowski, Mark Gronowski. So I will always be able to say his name from now on. Iowa's my team that we've talked about. If we want to talk about a team that we did not talk about very much, man, I like PJ Fleck for some reason. I feel like he can coach. They're a tough place to play. I like the koi pond out there. It's just something about Minnesota that I always like. Man, they're going to be in some games that they shouldn't be. They're going to win some of the games they're going to win the games that they should, and they're going to be involved in some of those games that they shouldn't be, and they're going to eke one out. And I mean, I wouldn't be shocked to see Minnesota 7 wins, 8 wins. I haven't predicted it 6-6 right now, but I would not bat an eye if they're 8-4 at the end of the year. Wouldn't bat an eye. It wouldn't shock me at all.
I am right there with you on Minnesota because PJ Fleck. I know that not everybody loves PJ Fleck. I know he can rub people the wrong way, but he just finds ways to build a team, build the roster. He's not going to win 9-10 games every year, but he is going to he's going to put together a team every couple of years that's going to be a little scary. Minnesota gave Penn State all they could handle last year.
Oh yeah.
We talked about that they were close in a lot of games. I think Minnesota is going to be another team here. I think they're going to make a bowl game pretty easily.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think they're going to be pushing 9-10 wins, but I think if we sat here and said, hey, Minnesota went 8-4 and had a pretty solid year, I'd buy myself into that.
Yeah, they always have a good run.
I live in Minnesota, grew up an Iowa fan, so I'm kind of supposed to hate Minnesota. I haven't got there. Maybe it's because we've won 9 of the last 10 against them, but but anyways, it does help. But I want to say this: they seem to, and I love the positivity of your guys' podcast. If I haven't said it before, I really appreciate that. We've got a Clemson guy, we've got an Ohio State guy that can recognize that Minnesota's a good team. I feel like you get outside the Big Ten footprint and people kind of poo-poo the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Like if you come into the bank to their home stadium, you're going to get a tough game. Okay. You're going to get a tough game when they're away from home, to be honest with you, because they do things the right way. They run the ball and they play defense. So if you make mistakes versus a team like Minnesota, you're probably catching that L. This team is no different this year. The one thing I would say is, Minnesota fans are a little bit higher on Drake Lindsey, their quarterback, than I am. He falls into that same category. We know nothing about him. Yep. So I don't know nothing about their quarterback, and I especially don't know anything if he goes down. That's my biggest fears for Minnesota. But if he can stay healthy and if he can do, competent quarterback play, they're definitely getting to a bowl. And then, by the way, winning that bowl, because that's what PJ Fleck does.
Yeah, and to add to that, too, you look at the losses last year. Iowa was the biggest loss at 17 points. They lose to North Carolina by 2. They lose to Michigan by 3. They lose to Rutgers by 7. They lose to Penn State by 1. So, they're in all of the games they were playing in last year. You insert a more talented, arguably a more talented quarterback, albeit he's a freshman. Is he a true freshman or is he a redshirt?
Redshirt freshman. Yep. 5 classes last year.
Yeah. Yep. So like, what's he going to be? No one knows, but I think he is a talented guy. He's more talented than the guy from UNH they had last year. So I don't know. I always tend to pull for the Golden Gophers. That's one of those teams I just have a soft spot in my heart for.
What's hilarious with Minnesota is that they essentially have 2 games that it's just really hard for me to see them win, Ohio State and Oregon. 3 games that I would really have a hard time seeing that they lose. And then every other game in between those 5 is a jump ball. Like that is what is that's what's fun.
Yeah. Bunch of coin flips. If a bunch of land heads, you're going to end up, pushing 8-9 wins. A bunch land tails, you're going to be sitting here at 4 or 5 wins wondering what went wrong.
Yep. And it'll probably be somewhere in between, right? So that's why
likely
their season total's right at 6.5.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jeff, we really appreciate you jumping on talking Big Ten football here. Absolutely loved having you on here. Go ahead, let everybody know where to go find all your stuff, and prop yourself up and talk. Why Iowa's going to win the national championship this year.
Usually, I'm not that guy, but if you want to get all 18 teams, it's the Eyes on Big podcast, Spotify and Apple. The best places to get the podcast. Don't do a ton of YouTube stuff. And then if you want to follow more of my stuff, I'm on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at Jeffrey the Greek. I'm usually the one that puts out most of the stuff on the podcast. So please give us a follow. We always love to get more people to follow. And Jake and William, it was a surprise today to come out and get invited onto the podcast. I have listened to your podcast before. It's good stuff. You guys know what you're talking about. And again, I just always like to talk to people that know their stuff, but aren't jerks about it. I don't know how else to say it. You don't have to do the put somebody down in order to have an interesting take. So I always appreciate when other podcasts have that format.
Yeah, we appreciate that, Jeff.
Absolutely. Well, again, thanks for joining us. Make sure to go check out Eyes on Big and go follow Jeffrey the Greek on Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it these days. But with that being said, we're back again next week. We have the Big 12 coming out next week, SEC, and soon enough, we are, I don't even know what days we're at. We're like 30-ish days
31?
till college football. Yeah, there we go. So we're back soon enough. With that being said, we'll see everybody again next week.